have food that's gonna make a huge impact on your ability to achieve and your ability to work and make a really, really big impact on what you're doing, or else you're gonna find yourself in a position where you're way too crabby and you don't know why. What is up, guys? Derek Alexander here. So if you've gone through stress or you're in any type of business or an entrepreneur like myself, you know that it can have a drastic negative impact on what you're trying to create. It's so important to be able to be at a stable emotional place when you're creating and making an impact in your work. But if you get too stressed out, sometimes it can paralyze you and put you in a position where you really can't get anything done. So in this video, I'm gonna look at 5 of the top reasons people get stressed out, and we're gonna nip it in the bud so you can focus on your message and serving, which is really what we're all trying to create. So let's dive right into it. The first sign is that you can't stop thinking about your work. Now, this is something that I've experienced in my life personally. There's been times I'm trying to have fun, I'm trying to go enjoy myself, I'm trying to unplug. But even though I'm out doing something that should be fun, all I'm doing is thinking about what I'm doing wrong in my business or what's creating a lot of chaos and anxiety. It's a really tough situation because you really can't be present. And the challenge is when we get into business for ourselves and we work for ourselves, the whole point of getting to work for yourself is that so when you do spend time doing things you love, you can be fully present in those activities. That's why we grind, and that's why we go through being self-employed and creating your own businesses so that you can enjoy the time you step away and you can control your own hours rather than having someone else control yours. So if you're not able to unplug from your work and it's constantly in your mind giving you anxiety, then it's almost like you're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's gonna create this terrible trend where you're never gonna be able to fully unplug. And this is something that I dealt with for years and years and years of my life. And it's a consistent thing that we all go through, and I still struggle with from time to time. But one of the things that's dramatically helped me with this is finding out in my own life, based on my personality, certain activities and things that give me a lot of joy that allow me to become truly present in that current space. So what I mean by that is, for a lot of people, there's certain activities that they do where when they're doing that activity, they're not having any other conscious thought, right? There's the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. The conscious mind is aware of our own thoughts. It's something where you have your mind chatter going. You're thinking about your taxes or your bills or that call if they're gonna buy. And you're constantly going through this mind chatter so you can't be present on a task. But then there's other things where we have our subconscious mind going. So for example, when we brush our teeth, we're not thinking about brushing our teeth, we're just brushing our teeth. It's something we do on a daily basis. So in your life, there's probably certain activities that you do that really allow you to get into your subconscious mind where you're really present on that activity. A perfect example of this for myself would be snowboarding. I really love snowboarding, I love wakeboarding, I love just board sports in general. But when I'm on a wakeboard or I'm on a snowboard, I'm not thinking about all these different things I have to do. Why? Because if I were thinking about that, I would fall in the water, right? I would completely crash and burn, right? I'd fall on my board and I'd eat it. So if I think about something while I'm doing that activity, it's going to screw me over. I won't be able to do the activity. So I put myself in a position that literally forces me to be present and not be thinking. And the time I spend on that activity that allows me to be present is more time where I'm not having to go through a perpetual loop about my business. 9 times out of 10, we already solve the problem in our own mind. But if we don't solve the problem, then we're trying to solve something, but we don't have the resources to solve it. So we play this loop in our brain where we think that we're somehow going to get new information, new stimuli that's going to be able to solve the problem. But if you don't get a new piece of information, whether from another client or a coworker to solve that challenge, and your own brain has reached a conclusion or consensus about that situation that is unsolved, you sitting here thinking about it longer isn't going to solve it. You're going to need to accept the fact that maybe this challenge you're currently going through will not be solved right now, not this minute, not this hour, maybe not this day. And you have to be at peace with that. What allows you to get to that place of peace faster is doing something that keeps you completely present in that activity. For a lot of people, it can be throwing on an audio or a podcast and going on a walk. It could be going to the gym. But whatever that is for you that lets you to be present, where it forces yourself to not have your mind going off in other directions, identify what that is and make sure you're doing that at least once a day, 15, 20 minutes, so you can habituate yourself to be at a point where you accept the fact that it's okay to not have every little thing figured out about your current business that you're working on. The second sign is that you're just having trouble sleeping, whether that's when you go to bed or whether you wake up too early from anxiety. That is one of the biggest issues when you're an entrepreneur, when you're going to business for yourself, because sleep is so important. There's been recent studies that show our bodies need at least 8 hours of sleep, and less than that can have a dramatic negative effect on our ability to achieve things throughout the day and just be the full optimized version of ourselves. One huge thing that I try and distance myself to do is always go into airplane mode when I go to bed. So when I wake up in the morning, first thing I see my phone, I'm not getting inundated with a ton of texts, a ton of notifications, and a ton of things that are requiring my attention. Popping in airplane mode before I go to sleep allows me to wake up in the morning and discipline myself to not immediately open airplane mode, but gather myself, stay present, and realize, okay, when I get out of airplane mode, I know a lot is coming. But before I do that, I need to give myself just a few minutes to get conscious, be able to accept the fact that I'm in the morning, I'm taking in lots of new information, and I need to be able to be self-aware enough to have good decision making so I'm not making emotional choices when I get out of airplane mode. The other thing is the blue light. I wear blue blockers. They're glasses that help me where as I'm winding down at night, I can start unwinding by not looking at all these different notifications, and I can start using these blue blockers to settling my eyes down and not getting so much exposure. Because if you think about it, when we were, prehistoric or hundreds of years ago where we didn't have houses with artificial light, when the sun went down and the nightfall went up and the moon went up, we would just naturally fall asleep. But now in your own home, you can keep the lights on until 2 a.m. So you get this artificial light, which is artificial stimuli that can actually have you awake at all hours of the night and give you a really bad time zone and affect your circadian rhythm. So understand, sleep is so important. And if you're feeling like you're restless at night and then you wake up in the morning with a lot of anxiety, then you want to make a regimen where you can start unplugging 30 minutes before bed, have some tea. I use passion flower. It helps with the mind chatter in my brain, and then do something to unwind you and just build that habit so that when you go to sleep, your mind's not running and you can be able to wake up the next day more efficient and more clear to really just tackle the task that you want to take at hand. The third sign is that you're just irritable. You're snappy at people, you're aggressive, you're not listening, and you just are chirping back, and you're not thinking about how your emotional state is going to have an effect on the people you're working with. You indirectly get too crabby or too upset because of whatever you're going through. This is a clear sign that you need to take a break and focus on yourself and center in. The ultimate thing is that people are going to disappoint you in your work. It's just going to happen. If you expect every single person to always perform at their absolute best and always deliver on every single target, then you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment, because that's just not who people are. That's not human nature. People make mistakes, as you will, as I will. It's just what we do. So we have to give ourselves grace in the workspace, not just for ourselves, but for other people, to accept the fact that people are going to slip up, people are going to fall, people are going to make mistakes. But what defines a leader is how they react to those mistakes. It's not about making sure that you hold such a high standard that when people do mess up, you're really hard on them. It's understanding that people are going to mess up in general. And when they do, you've had the understanding and the discipline and the discernment to not get so upset and not react to people in a way that's going to cause people a lot of harm. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in the book, they tell a story about a pilot who's getting ready to take a flight on a smaller plane. And one of the people that gets ready for their flights accidentally realized they didn't put enough fuel in the plane. The plane almost crashed. The pilot almost died. This was back in the 1950s, but luckily they were able to land the plane successfully. When the pilot got out of the plane, the person that messed up on the fuel was ready to just get fired, get thrown at, get yelled at, and just get really taken down from not having enough fuel and almost killing the pilot. But instead, the pilot reacted with grace, with humility, and said, hey, you learned your lesson, don't do it again. And that requires a lot of discipline from a leader to not just get really mad and emotional. But what it also did was build tremendous influence for the individual so they learn from that mistake and they're better next time. And this is something that I'm not perfect at, and a lot of people aren't perfect at, but having the temperance to understand that your emotions are going to dictate people's decision making and their ability to want to work with you is huge. So if you're too irritable, figure out a way to change that and make sure to be disciplined with your reactions towards people in the workspace. The fourth is a lack of appetite or too big of an appetite. I know for myself, when I get too stressed out with my work or my business, I tend to not eat. I'm not overindulging, I'm doing the opposite. I'm so focused on what I'm doing, whether I'm having coffee or whether I'm just not eating at all, that I forget the fact that I need to actually go get food. I need to eat something. We have to understand food is fuel. It's not just pleasure. So the food that we put in our body makes a dramatic effect on how we're going to be able to be efficient in our day-to-day activities. So eat whole nutritional foods. Don't eat processed sugars. Don't eat all that crap throughout the day. Have food that's going to make a huge impact on your ability to achieve and your ability to work and make a really, really big impact on what you're doing, or else you're going to find yourself in a position where you're way too crabby and you don't know why. Keep those carbs in, get those proteins, get those essential fats, because if you don't eat throughout the day, you're not going to be as optimized as you'd like to be, and it's going to have a really, really big impact, not just on your mental health, but on your physical health too, because you're not going to have the energy to go express yourself, to go work out and go do the things that are going to keep you the most balanced version of yourself to operate in your business on a day-to-day basis. And number 5 is that you just stopped enjoying the actual work in your business. If you decide that the work you're doing is not enjoyable or not fun, or you just reach a point where you don't really like what you're doing, what happens is there's this turning point where you stop validating all the reasons why your business can be successful, and you start looking for circumstances and situations as to why it can't happen. Well, either way, you're going to gather outside evidence to validate that decision. But you might as well gather evidence that it's going to enforce the growth of your business rather than detract from it. If you're at a point where you feel like the work you're doing and the business you're building isn't fun and you're not enjoying it, before you just quit or throw the towel and just give up, really ask yourself, is it the actual business Or is it me getting burnt out with the habits that I've really ingrained in myself? Because a lot of the times it's not the business, it's not the work, it's not the result you're trying to go for. It's the little things. It's the actual day-to-day monotony that you go through that give you a bad representation of what you actually need to do. A lot of the time we're trying to get stuff done, we look at this huge wall of stuff that we have to accomplish in one day, we get too intimidated, and then we don't do any of it at all. Or we only do the things that don't actually move the needle, but they're just kind of like the things that you write off the list just to say you got it off the list. But if you can actually water down the key things that you need to get done in your day to really move your business, you'll notice that your business becomes more fun and you enjoy it more. So before you just write that off, because we all go through hard times in our business, really ask yourself, is it my business that I don't enjoy, or is it the activities that I've set for myself that really aren't going to move the needle that I just don't want to accomplish? Because I promise you, the feeling you're going to get if you push through that, when you get the results from your work, is going to be so much better for you that you're going to really be grateful for the fact that you actually push through those different challenges in your work. The other thing that you got to do is just ask for help. There's a lot of people that can give you really good insight that maybe are in other industries or other businesses that don't have a direct effect into your work. They can give you really good outside opinion on how you're acting. Now, when I say this, you may think, well, they don't know my industry, they don't know my work, they don't know what I'm doing on a day-to-day. You're right. But a lot of these people can give a really good opinion on what your work is from an outside perspective, because in a lot of different businesses, a lot of different industries, even though the products may be different, the customers may be different, the needs may be different, the leadership and the actual skill sets that are needed to be successful in your work or in your trade are probably very similar. So if there's people that are doing well in other areas of work in your life, going and reaching out for help and saying, hey, I'm just feeling stressed, I'm feeling unmotivated, I can't sleep, I can't eat, my mind is going like crazy, I need some insight on how I can be better. These conversations, even if they're not always telling you exactly what you need to hear, just you expressing it and you verbally letting that out is gonna make an impact for you. Because sometimes it's not about actually having someone tell us what we need to hear, it's about having someone that's really willing to listen and be able to hear you, and you being able to express those emotions so they don't stay inside of you, but you're able to actually get them out of your system and then let someone just make you feel heard. That way it's not just you trying to console yourself and you trying to process what you're going through, but it's letting another person listen as well. So if you can really discipline yourself to finding a couple people who you respect who maybe aren't in your industry, your niche, and get their opinions when you're feeling like you're just hitting a wall, having those people in your circle is gonna make a huge impact to your ability to get stuff done in your business and outside of your business. These 5 things can really make a precedent for how your business runs, whether it's successful or whether it's unsuccessful. But always remind yourself that it's never as bad or as good as you think it is. We have to have an attitude of understanding that the things that happen in our life are inevitable, but how we perceive it is what we get to control, what we choose. So if you can recognize when great things happen, they're not always gonna be as great, and when bad things happen, they're not always gonna be as bad, then you can accept the fact that as long as you follow the main disciplines in what's gonna move the needle in your work, then you're gonna progressively see more and more results. But a lot of that is just not letting your emotions get in the way and creating rituals that'll help remove that stress and give you more passion instead and more purpose, and eventually a lot more prosperity in the work that you're trying to do. So if you're trying to figure out how to create more purpose in your work and more passion, make sure to connect with me on social media, and I'm here to give more tips, more tricks, and you can learn about my business, what I've done, how we built communities of tens of thousands of people all around the world that are leveraging some of the most amazing technology to transition to doing what they love on a full-time basis. Again, that's Derek Alexander. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I appreciate the love, and I will see you next time.